Good morning. Thanks everyone for joining us. I've got Dr. Roussin with me today, and Brent, thanks again for all your work and the work of your team. We appreciate it. Manitobans appreciate it. This is a good news day for Manitobans. After nearly a year and a half of fighting COVID-19, it's time for Manitobans to start to get some of their freedoms back and enjoy this beautiful summer. This is what we all want to do. Manitobans have earned that right. Après d'un an et demi de lutte contre COVID-19, il est temps pour les Manitobans de retrouver leur liberté et de profiter d'un été que nous voulons tous et que nous avons légitimement mérité. 2 weeks ago, Dr. Roussin and I presented Manitobans with a science-based reopening pathway that was tied to rising vaccination rates, first and second dose vaccinations, and declining COVID cases. This 4-3-2-1 Great Summer Plan set out 4 reopening categories. It set out 3 long weekend milestones that we needed to hit, 2 public health responsibilities, follow the public health orders and get vaccinated, and it set out a clear path for one great summer with more openings and fewer restrictions as more and more Manitobans roll up their sleeves and get fully vaccinated. This week, Manitobans met and surpassed the vaccination goals. Thank you to Manitobans for doing that. So our first reopening milestone has been hit. As of today, over 71% of Manitobans have received their first vaccine dose, and more than 27% have received their second dose. And I'm pleased to share that we have administered now 1.2 million doses of vaccine, and here's to our vaccine team for the tremendous work they've done, and everybody there deserves a round of applause from all Manitobans. It should be noted that just in the last 5 days alone, we've administered more than 100,000 doses. That's a significant accomplishment. It is one of the best records in Canada, and Manitobans deserve to be rightfully proud of their fellow Manitobans who have been leading that charge. C'est une réalisation importante et les Manitobans devraient être fiers. Vaccine supplies from the federal government have been ramping up, not continuously, but off and on, and we appreciate that work. And our vaccination team was able to get shots into arms as fast or faster than really any other province in the country, and that's allowed us to hit our first vaccination benchmark. So thank you to you for your efforts to roll up your sleeve and follow current public health orders. Dr. Roussin and I are pleased today that we are able to move forward with reopening Manitoba 1 week ahead of schedule. Now let's keep it up. Because Manitobans met this first vaccination goal early, we're going to be reopening Manitoba early, beginning June the 26th. Effective this Saturday, June the 26th, all Manitobans will be able to gather in larger numbers, dine out in restaurants and on patios, attend church, go to gyms, hair salons, retail stores in every region of the province. Manitoba businesses will be able to welcome more customers back. Manitobans will be able to resume some of the activities they've missed and see the people they love more frequently. For the past few months, we've been in a race between variants and vaccines, and the variants had been winning. But thanks to the efforts of Manitobans to roll up their sleeves, not once but twice, the vaccines are starting to win, and they're beating back that third wave. Together with declining COVID-19 case numbers, test positivity rates, and hospitalizations, Manitobans can now begin to enjoy more freedoms and fewer public health restrictions, and that's great news. I'll pass it over to Dr. Roussin to provide more details on the new public health orders. Over to you, Brent.
Well, thank you, Premier. Good morning. I'm Brent Roussin, as Chief Provincial Public Health Officer. Today is significant and a marker of Manitobans' hard work. There's been a lot of sacrifice over these last number of months, and that sacrifice has led to what led us to be able to do what we're announcing today. There's been a lot of missed celebrations, milestones, and making of memories due to restrictions over the last several weeks. Today is that ray of hope. that light at the end of the tunnel. Effective 12:01 a.m. Saturday, June 26th, all Manitobans will benefit from these changes, including outdoor gathering sizes on private property to double to 10 persons, allowing outdoor visitors to briefly access homes for essential activities such as use of a washroom. Public outdoor gathering sizes increased to 25 persons. Retail businesses open with increased capacity at 25% to a limit of 250 persons, with no restrictions on the number of household members permitted to shop together. Personal services businesses such as hair, nail salons, estheticians, barbers, etc., to reopen at 50% capacity, but an appointment-only basis. Restaurant and bars will open at 25% capacity indoors, 50% capacity outdoors. Those patrons seated together indoor dining must be from the same household or be all fully vaccinated. So those who are fully immunized are able to dine indoors with people from other households. For outdoor dining, tables are limited to a maximum of 8 patrons, but no other limitations on who may sit together. Indoor faith-based services and organized community gatherings such as a powwow, Sundance ceremonies to resume at 25% capacity to a limit of 25 persons, and indoor mask rules apply. Outdoor faith-based and organized community gatherings, again, such as powwow, Sundance ceremonies, can resume at 50 persons, provided distancing can be maintained between households. Drive-in services will continue to be permitted. Outdoor weddings and funerals will take place up to 25 participants, in addition to a photographer and officiant. Indoor weddings and funerals will remain at 10 persons. Indoor dance, music, theater, and other organized sports and recreation activities may open at 25% capacity to a limit of 5 persons, with no tournaments allowed. Outdoor dance, music, and theater classes and other outdoor organized recreational activities may open for groups up to 25 people, but no tournaments are allowed. Swimming pools, splash pads, both indoor and outdoor, may open at 25% capacity. Gyms and fitness facilities may open for individual and group fitness classes at 25% capacity, with 3 meters of distance maintained between patrons. Summer day camps may open at 20 participants per group. So we still need to follow the fundamentals, including indoor mask use, physical distancing, staying home when we're ill. This is all still required. Add to that fundamental, getting vaccinated as soon as possible, whether that's your first or second dose. These orders are scheduled to expire 12:01 a.m. on Monday, August 2nd, which is the next milestone in the 4321 Great Summer Reopening Plan. While the case numbers are improving and our healthcare system is seeing some relief, this pandemic is certainly not over. The variants of concern, especially the Delta variant, is circulating and continues to be a concern. We need to continue to practice those fundamentals: washing hands, physical distancing, wear a mask, get vaccinated. Manitobans who are fully immunized, 2 doses plus 2 weeks from the second dose, will now benefit from the following exemptions: visiting loved ones in personal care homes or hospitals, participate in social or communal activities if you are a resident of a personal care home or a congregate living facility, travel domestically for essential or non-essential purposes outside of Manitoba without the requirement to self-isolate upon return, dine in at restaurants and bars, both indoors, outdoors, with other fully immunized friends and family from outside your household, large-scale outdoor professional sports or performing arts events may also invite fully immunized Manitobans to attend. This is going to be subject to approval by Manitoba Public Health. The province will work with sports and arts organizations to implement proof of vaccine protocols. Additionally, benefits for fully immunized Manitobans will be announced in July for increasing capacity for fully immunized people at events such as weddings, funerals, face-based and other gatherings, based on continued vaccination rate increases and improvements in the province's overall COVID-19 situation. So book your vaccine appointment. This is either your first or second one as soon as you can. When people get vaccinated, the community transmission is reduced, protects the individual, protects the people around them, the people they love, the people they care about. It helps us get back to days like this, where we start loosening these restrictions. We can protect all Manitobans by each of us getting fully vaccinated. So do make that vaccine appointment today or as soon as you are eligible. So thank you again, and I'm going to pass it back to the Premier.
Thanks very much, Dr. Roussin, and great news and a great message. Our plan, our 4-3-2-1 Great Summer Reopening Plan, is a path that rewards Manitobans, as we're doing today, with greater freedoms and fewer restrictions on our lives and the economy, as more and more of us get vaccinated. That full vaccination is the key. And I have to remind Manitobans as we move forward on this path that we have to continue to do our part. We have to continue to fulfill those two most important goals of getting vaccinated and of following public health orders. They are important. So while today's good news is cause for relief, and it is sincerely, I think, a cause for relief for all Manitobans, we're not at the finish line yet. We've got more freedoms to get back, and the pandemic is not over. And the variants of concern, including the more contagious Delta variant, are still circulating. And I know that for some people today's announcement will be, too much, and for others not enough. That's the nature of the challenges we face as a government and that our health leaders face in making their recommendations. We try to strike a balance and make sure that we're doing our best to protect while not overly restricting the freedoms of our citizens. But I think all Manitobans know that in spite of these difficult and trying times, Dr. Roussin and I are doing our best to make sure that we recognize that though we've all had enough of COVID isn't through with us just yet, and we have to be careful. We must continue to proceed with caution, and today's announcements are perhaps for some too cautious and for others not cautious enough. But the reality is that striking that balance is the challenge we all have to play a part in. So despite the progress we've made together over the past couple of months against this third wave, and it is significant progress, public health restrictions are still required. They're still necessary to keep Manitobans' COVID curve down and keep COVID down. Protect our hospitals, protect our communities, and help those folks who need medical services beyond those that are directly related to COVID get the treatment they deserve as well. Vaccines are the best way out of this pandemic. They're our protection against a possible fourth wave. Vaccines are how we get our lives back, and I'll just echo Dr. Roussin's urging and encourage all Manitobans who have yet to get vaccinated to please do so, and to all those who have got their first shot to make arrangements for that second one as soon as you possibly can. Each of us has a role to play in protecting ourselves and each other and our loved ones and our community. Nous avons tous un rôle à jouer pour nous protéger nos proches et notre communauté aussi. So please get vaccinated as soon as you can. Keep following those public health orders. Together we can beat this thing. Look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Premier. Thank you, Doctor. A reminder to our reporters on the line, you will have one preliminary and one follow-up question. Up first this morning from CBC Radio Canada, Mina.
Yes, so my question is for the Premier Pallister. So you said that full vaccination is the key. We know that the Delta seems to be resistant to just one dose, so why not wait to reopen everything?
Well, frankly, Mina, we are going slower than a lot of other jurisdictions around us, but we're doing that because we still have higher positivity test numbers. We still have a higher percentage of people for our size in needing hospitalization in ICUs, and we're doing that recognizing what you've just said, that variants are with us, and they are risky. That's why getting that second vaccine is so critical, because the effectiveness is boosted enormously when you get that second vaccine against the Delta variant, against all COVID varieties, but in particular the Delta variant. So we just encourage Manitobans to get that vaccine and get that second one as soon as they can.
And so daily cases number have dropped in the last week, but allowing so many new opportunities for interaction, do you expect to see an increase in cases?
So we're seeing now that's offset by rising vaccine rates. Again, a lot of these changes in orders are directed towards those outdoor activities as well, so to minimize that transmission. When we're talking about some of the, in the past, higher risk for transmission, that prolonged indoor contact, things like dining at a restaurant, still it's household only or fully vaccinated indoors. Again, outdoors is less risky. So I think it's still a plan that takes in consideration that this virus is still transmitting in Manitoba. But at the same time, Manitobans have achieved very high vaccine rates very quickly, exceeding our July 1 date. And so this is the time to give some of those freedoms back.
From CBC Manitoba, Holly.
Hi, I'd just like to hear from Dr. Roussin. So experts have kind of been warning about the Delta variant and its resistance to that first dose and extreme transmissibility. I'm just wondering, do you feel that this is a cautious approach like they've been asking for? How did Delta play into deciding all of these reopening plans?
Yeah, and so I think with us, when we review the Delta, then you can see we focus our targets a lot on that second dose. So we're not focused just on what percentage of Manitobans get the first dose. It's that second dose, and you can see that's dramatically climbing. And by the time early this week, we've exceeded 25%. And by the time these orders take effect, it's going to be even significantly higher than that. So it's really that second dose. And again, it's a measured approach here. Manitobans, are deserving of loosening of these restrictions. It's still that measured approach, but Manitobans have stepped up and got vaccinated. We need them to continue to do so we can continue to have days like this.
Thank you. And unless I've missed it, there's no changes to indoor household visitors. Why is that?
So again, this is one of the highest risk transmission settings that we've seen in pretty much any of our waves. So we want to get the Manitobans together. We want to do that outdoors, and you can see where we get Manitobans together indoors. It's under very controlled situations. And we know that, indoor in private residences, there's no really way to control who's vaccinated or how many people or, or what occurs there. So for right now, again, that's part of that cautious approach. We wanted to maintain no indoor private gatherings because we've seen so much transmission occur there in the past.
From the Canadian Press, Kelly.
Hello. So from this list, obviously, we're just taking a quick look. It looks like most businesses will be allowed to reopen, obviously, with capacity restrictions. But are there any that you're still holding back from opening that may still be deemed too unsafe?
Yeah, so if you look at that list, you'll see that we still haven't opened things like casinos or movie theaters at this point. That's in the works. Yeah, we're going to be able to see that this summer. Due to, according to our plan, as Manitobans continue to get vaccinated at the rate they are, we're going to see that. It's just we can't, open everything at once. We still have to be a bit cautious, and so these venues for now are going to remain closed. But it's certainly in the works. We're going to see those open, barring any dramatic shifts. We're going to see them open this summer.
And it appears as though maybe the plans moving forward will have a special category for people who are fully vaccinated. Is that the plan, and what does this mean for larger events only for people fully vaccinated?
I'll have more to say on that early next week. we've offered a variety of motivations to encourage people to get vaccinated, as you know, Kelly. I mean, apart from Dr. Roussin and I pleading with Manitobans to do that, I'll have more detail to announce on the progress of our community outreach, sort of the micro strategy of getting various community groups that have really responded to reach out to members of their community and persuade and encourage is something that I'll be able to give you more of an update on. And then the macro strategies of incentivizing, we've already introduced the concept of a lottery where everyone wins, quite frankly. And we'll be looking at some other initiatives as well, so I'll share more of that with you in the coming days.
From CTV Winnipeg, Michelle.
Good morning. Question about the dining rules about fully vaccinated to dine indoors. How is that going to be managed? Do you need to have a proof of vaccination, or is this kind of something that you're going to be relying on the staff in those businesses to police themselves?
So we've already begun distributing both digital and plastic cards of proof of vaccination to Manitobans. There is an app that will be available later this week that will simply be able to read those cards. Again, though, it doesn't share really personal health information. It simply will show the person's name and either a green check mark, fully vaccinated, or an X, no records found. And nothing is stored or anything like that. So there will be a way to verify people's vaccine status.
Thank you. When it comes to families, since children under 12 can't be vaccinated and there's not enough Pfizer to vaccinate everybody who is 12 to 17, will this rely on the parents' vaccination status if they want to do these things, these benefits that come with being fully vaccinated?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So similar to our travel isolation rule, those that aren't eligible for vaccine, those under 12, yes, they will follow their parents' vaccine status. So if both parents that they're traveling with or both parents that are attending a restaurant are fully vaccinated, those under 12 would meet that. We're not going to have that same exemption for 12 to 17. We expect we're going to continue to be able to vaccinate all eligible people moving forward, and so that exemption is just going to be for people who are ineligible at this point.
From City News, Mark.
Hi there. Just going off that, if there was a family who heard they could go out to dine if they were fully vaccinated but had a child who was under 18 and could only get the Pfizer vaccine right now, if we get more Pfizer doses into the province, is there any thought about putting those aside for the under 18 population as opposed to letting everyone have access to them?
Well, we think moving forward we're going to be able to keep the vaccines rolling in all eligible people. So there'll be more coming shortly on exactly why that is. Moderna has applied for approval for 12 and up as well. So, I don't see that as a big issue moving forward. We're going to be able to keep those vaccines rolling out. Remember, households can dine together indoor, and then there's no limit if you're dining outdoor. So this is going to be for people who want to dine with others outside of their household, and for now, indoors they'll need to be fully vaccinated.
And just, we've seen at the Shoppers Drug Mart and Osborne that there clearly is a large group of people who are trying to get the Pfizer dose. I'm just wondering if there could be any update provided on if and when more may be coming to the province.
No, I don't have the specifics on that. We can ask the vaccine task force. For me, again, make it clear that there's really no need to shop for a vaccine. If you're eligible for Pfizer or Moderna, and Moderna is the one that's in front of you, get the Moderna. There's no reason to put it off and wait for a Pfizer. These are equivalent vaccines, safe, effective, and so if it's in front of you and you don't have access to Pfizer and Pfizer's your first shot, get the Moderna.
From CHVN, Taylor.
Hi, good morning. Why can larger indoor faith-based gatherings occur, but other public indoor gatherings are significantly limited if they can happen?
Yeah, well, so I mean, we don't have a lot of. There's some instances of indoor, if you want to call it gathering, or at least indoor activities, right? We see gyms being open. We have retail open. We have some of the dance classes and things. Faith-based organizations, again, 25% capacity, which is keeping with this. We have a very tight cap on that right now at 25 individuals. So, so I don't classify that as, wide open. It's certainly quite restricted. We know that prolonged indoor contact is a risk factor for it. So as we get more and more vaccinated, we want to be able to expand on that this summer, because I think the 25 is still, we're still being very cautious there.
And is there any chance of these loosenings being rolled back? And if so, what would trigger the more restrictions?
So we set scientific milestone standards on first and second vaccinations that we achieved earlier here in Manitoba, and that's why we're getting our lives back a little sooner. And the same thing's going to apply going forward into the summer. So if we can keep going and hit our targets sooner, and the projections look good right now, then we can look forward to getting even more of these restrictions lifted, and that will mean more people able to, hopefully, people able to go back to church or go in larger numbers to do various things, and our retail opening up even more for shopping and that type of thing. But that won't happen until and unless we continue on the path to progress that we've outlined.
From the Winnipeg Free Press, Carol.
Good morning. The Southern Health Region's vaccination rate is far below the target that public health officials said is required in order to relax the pandemic restrictions. So how can the rest of the province reopen safely if people in the Southern region aren't getting vaccinated at the targeted rate? And how do you address that discrepancy or that lack of vaccination among a good chunk of the population?
We're addressing that in a number of ways, Carol, as you know. And also community work is being done by community leaders at the municipal level in partnership with their folks there to reach out and to encourage folks. We've used education and information in 100 different languages as a way to try to encourage people and increase that awareness. I'll have more to say on the details of our community outreach projects, very exciting initiatives happening, including in the southern region and elsewhere around the province and the city of Winnipeg, and many other initiatives. A broad-based lottery I referenced earlier is another way to reach out, and we'll have more to say about that early next week.
The latest probe survey found that most Manitobans have lost faith in your government's ability to keep them safe. Do you have a plan to restore their faith? And if so, how will you do that?
We're talking about that today, Carol. And we'll continue to act on the best advice we can get. And I think Dr. Roussin's given us great advice. I thank him for that. And we continue to celebrate the work of our vaccine team and our communities, frankly. Throughout the pandemic, it's been a tough time for everybody. I understand that, and I accept full responsibility for the difficulties and challenges everyone's facing. But today's good news, and it's good news because Manitobans made it happen, and they'll make it happen again. You know, we pushed back that first wave, the second two, and now we're doing it again, and we get rewarded for doing that. So congratulations to Manitobans.
From Global News, Brittany.
Good afternoon, Dr. Roussin and Premier Pallister. Before in the health orders, people have been asked to work remotely if possible. Is that still being asked? And also, when might those indoor gathering targets be on the table? Would that be for possibly August?
Yeah, so if, for right now, we're still, if you can work remotely, let's work remotely. We want to reduce indoor gathering, crowding. We're not out of this. We want to loosen things we can, give some of those freedoms back, but we want to be cautious as we do it. And as far as indoor gatherings, yes, I think that as we move through this this summer, as our vaccine rate increases, we're going to be able to do more and more. And that's going to include indoor gathering. So we're going to be keeping with that, 4-3-2-1 plan. And as we've now, even our first step, we've started ahead of schedule. And so we're really hoping we can keep that trend going.
Thank you. And I guess as people look at our COVID trajectory, seeing the numbers going down, seeing hospitalizations starting to go down, how are you feeling about the trajectory we're on? And, some people are going to say, even though these things are allowed, they're going to wonder, should I do this? So what's the message there for people?
So I think that as we start moving in, we're not there yet, but we want to be moving towards a post-pandemic Manitoba. And again, that's not going to be a post-COVID Manitoba. And so we're going to be moving into an area of public health advice rather than public health restriction, and that's what we're really shooting for. And then it's going to be at that individual level. Here, Manitobans have become accustomed to the things that are a higher risk and things that are lower risk. So, indoor prolonged contact, these are a higher risk, especially in crowded places, poorly ventilated places. So at some point, that's going to be at that individual level of risk tolerance. And so we're working on some communications with that as we try to shoot towards a post-pandemic. We're looking at communications towards those people who are vaccinated, trying to help them identify what sort of risk tolerance they may have. So as we move forward, there's going to be individual communications. But really, the biggest impact is at that population level. If we can get as many Manitobans fully vaccinated as possible, our post-pandemic Manitoba is going to look better for it.
I think to add to that, Brittany, if I could, this highlights the importance of understanding that we're all part of the solution, and it's not just Manitobans. Every province is going to have somewhat different progress. Every province is going to have a different strategy. Others in other provinces are opening up and reducing restrictions a little faster than us. But ultimately, if COVID makes a comeback, we all suffer as a consequence of that. And we've seen that with our travel restrictions we had to have just to make sure we had more of a safeguard, or we were playing defense against the ability of COVID to move around, because when we moved, it moved with us. So now that we're loosening restrictions, some of that travel comes back, but you're quite right. The importance of traveling safely remains. And it's going to be important for all of us to remember that these health orders, if followed, can help us and can work for our advantage. But if not followed, we're going to put ourselves back into a disadvantaged situation where we lose some of those freedoms. So follow the health orders and get vaccinated remains the message of the day. Along with the good news that by doing that, we've made some progress today.
From the Brandon Sun, Kimberly.
Good morning. I wonder, in the areas of high vaccine intake, why not reduce or loosen the restrictions more in those areas, allowing more access? And that's a question for both the Premier and Dr. Roussin, if we can.
Kimberly, because we move so much, and more so I think even in the summer than in the winter, so people are moving all over the province, and they should, and we want them to. We want them to take advantage of this beautiful summer, and restrictions are starting to come off. People will be able to do that. They'll be able to go to various parts of the province and enjoy different venues and different events, different experiences, dining experiences now they couldn't have before, and things like that. And so all Manitobans are in this together. And so I think Brent would have more of the science on it.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of mobility, so we can't just rely on a regional uptake with it. We've really moving at that provincial level, but to do it in a lift it by region, it doesn't guarantee that the people entering that region are highly vaccinated as well. So our goal is to get as many Manitobans vaccinated throughout Manitoba. Really, when we talk about population level concepts, things like herd immunity, this really relies on uniform uptake. When we talk about 80-85% of Manitobans being vaccinated, that implies a uniform uptake. If you have pockets of highly unvaccinated Manitobans, even if we have a high provincial rate, that still puts us at risk if we have huge pockets of Manitobans that are unvaccinated. So we really need all regions to get those vaccine numbers up. We're working on that. But moving forward, we just need as many Manitobans vaccinated as possible.
Thank you. My second question is, with Alberta and Saskatchewan being far looser with their restrictions, I'm just wondering what's your thoughts on that, and what are the lessons that you've learned from the first two waves, and now we're cautiously opening after our third wave?
Start on that one, Kimberly, by saying, remember that Manitoba held off COVID a lot longer than Alberta and Saskatchewan. They got into that wave, the wave we hope is starting to end here a lot sooner than we did, and it stayed longer than it's apparently going to stay here. So that's not bad news. We'll learn from them, as we always do. We're watching every other jurisdiction's experience, not just in Canada, but around the world. There are many people who are concerned that the restrictions that are being loosened in other provinces are being loosened too rapidly. I've read those comments, and I can only say we'll watch with interest and cheer for the people of Alberta, Saskatchewan, Ontario, and everywhere else in the country and around the world that they can beat COVID. But here in Manitoba, the third wave came later. It came with intensity, and now Manitobans have responded, and they've responded well. And today is an announcement about what happens when we respond well. And what happens is we start to get our lives back, and that's great news for all of us.
From CJOB, Clay.
Good morning, Dr. Roussin and Premier Pallister. First off, regarding the reopening of restaurants and bars, will the hours of operation be curtailed starting Saturday, or will they be able to operate on what used to be regular hours?
We're still, as a first step, as we're just starting to open up, we're still going to have a similar last call or hours of operation as we had in wave 2 there. So I don't think we have the specific yet, but it will be an earlier closing. It won't be just the usual hours of operation.
Okay, here's a question I've been meaning to ask for a long time. Let's say I have a group of people, I invite a group of people over to my backyard this Sunday afternoon. Every single one of those persons, as they're entering the backyard, show me their fully vaccinated card. I've been fully vaccinated. I show them my card. Will I finally be able to hug somebody, or do you not recommend that yet?
You know, that's a great question, and so we're working at sort of with all the national colleagues to start coming out with specific advice on those scenarios. So certainly there isn't anything in the public health orders that would necessarily prevent that, but this is you're describing a very safe event there. You're outdoors. You're with fully vaccinated people. And we would ensure, of course, that none of those fully vaccinated people are symptomatic. But yes, so this is a lower risk situation, and we're going to have some more specific guidance on people like that. But what you described there is a quite safe gathering.
I can hug somebody.
Our final reporter this morning, Mr. Premier, from the Winnipeg Sun, Scott.
Hi, good afternoon, or I guess good morning to both of you. What's stopping? So you talk about addressing, the uptake in the southern regions. What is the risk to Manitobans for those folks that live there in those lower uptake areas from coming, to places like Winnipeg or Brandon, Steinbach, or whatever? What is the risk to the public there for those that haven't been vaccinated yet?
So when you're looking at, population level benefits, if you have areas where you have highly vaccinated people, when you have some, a smaller proportion that are unvaccinated, then we're still, that's that population benefit. There's less people to pass to them or less people that they could infect. The real concern is when you have a large group of unvaccinated people. So when you have a health region or a health district that has a high amount of unvaccinated people, then transmission can occur rapidly in those communities. And so, of course, it has the individual harm, the risk of the infection risk to the individual, but also to our system. Because if we have a lot of transmission, then that, of course, puts strain on our healthcare system as well. So it's really, we need that uniform vaccine uptake. But when we have areas of high vaccine uptake, it protects against some of the very few, hopefully, of people who are unvaccinated.
All right, thanks for that. A large part of our third wave has been kind of highlighted by the poor situation with our intensive care units. Those numbers are still pretty high. There's still, as of yesterday, 14 people outside the province. Is that in a good situation right now, or a good spot, I suppose, to handle, what might come from reopening?
Well, certainly the trajectory of our numbers and hospitalizations has been improving. We can't say, describe it as good because we know that the healthcare system is still under strain. We still have a lot of non-COVID care that needs to be done. So it's why we still have this cautious approach. And like the Premier said, there'll be many Manitobans who feel that this is maybe too cautious at this point. We've been able to achieve our targets of vaccine uptake. But for that very reason, we still have that strain in our healthcare system. We can't tolerate significant increase in transmission at this point. So we have to take this route. But although this, this plan is bringing a lot of freedoms back to Manitobans, but we believe in a safe manner.
Just wind it up and say thanks to Dr. Roussin again, and thanks to his team, and thanks to all of you for being part of this. And to remind everybody that our path is one that we're following, and with great success, but we need to continue to stay on that path, and that means making sure we are respectful of following those health orders, make sure that we encourage our friends and neighbors to get vaccinated, because just as we were able to reduce restrictions a good week earlier than we had set out originally in our game plan, we're ahead of the schedule right now, and we need to stay ahead of the schedule, and we can get more freedoms back sooner in July and maybe in August as well. So just make sure you do your part to get vaccinated and encourage others to do the same. Secondly, I just wanted to say today is June 23rd, which is the National Day of Remembrance for Victims of Terrorism. So if you are noticing the flags at half-mast at our Legislative Assembly, you would know why. And this is to commemorate from sunrise to sunset those victims around our country and world that have suffered as a consequence of terrorist acts. And finally, happy birthday, Esther. Esther, thank you for all these years that you've given us, and we appreciate it. All the best.